Hello, our friends. Hello, viewers and listeners. This is the new episode of our international series, the Real American Ones, with the Honorable Adam Solis again as our guest. Hello and welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, George.
And together with my producer Veselin, we will continue now with this episode. You can consider this a short disclaimer, which might be not very interesting for the Bulgarian public because it's not related with international politics or whatever, things that are all over the mainstream media. It is about a specific case, but it might be very interesting for anyone who wants to know better the judicial system, the functioning, the structure of the American society, which I believe, after all, is important for everyone because it's the biggest democracy and the biggest economy in the world. So you need to know how it functions in order to better understand everything that's being flooded to you by the mainstream media. So, the strange case of Tory Lanez. The guy had just is now recovering in a hospital after just surviving an attack in prison where he'd been stabbed multiple times, 10 to 14. His two lungs collapsed and he barely lived, but he is now recovering. Of course, we wish him well. And he was in prison because he was sentenced to 10 years in prison because of his involvement in a shooting which led to the wounding and the shooting of another very famous showbiz personality, Megan Thee Stallion. And from the sentence and from the decision of the jurors and everything, it became not clear, but it became well known to everyone that the reason that he is sentenced to those 10 years is because the jurors, the court, the prosecution obviously, believed that he was the shooter. And since then, a lot of facts emerged. There is a strong wave of support for Tory Lanez, both from people he worked with other celebrities like Drake and so on, petitions, hard push to Governor Newsom to pardon him. So what actually happened, and then we will talk about how the case became political. But first, what happened?
Well, unfortunately, according to Megan Thee Stallion, there seemed to be some sort of a disagreement, an issue when Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion were, I guess, spending time together, and subsequently a firearm was fired, and she somehow was struck in the foot. So, Tory Lanez took this to trial. He got counsel for this matter, and the prosecution subsequently withheld evidence. And unfortunately, he was sentenced to 10 years. And now our honorable Congresswoman, Ana Paulina Luna, has recently uncovered evidence that would show that he actually did not fire the weapon. And unfortunately, as we all know, Tory Lanez was viciously attacked in prison. I think he was stabbed about 14 times. And, by the grace of God, he's currently recovering, and he will make a full recovery. But unfortunately, all the things that have happened since the initial prosecution of Daystar Peterson, which is Tory Lanez's given name, up until now, essentially were miscarriages of justice. And it just highlights, the fact that there is an increasing amount of prosecutorial misconduct in our judicial system. It's something that is very rampant here in the U.S. If anything, if anyone wants another example of it, we can look at the case of our President Donald Trump, where there were many forms of prosecutorial misconduct in that matter. And unfortunately, Tory Lanez almost paid the price with his life. But according to Congressman Ana Paulina Luna, there is now video evidence showing that Tory Lanez did not actually fire a weapon. And if that is the case, and when this does go back in front of a judge and they acquit him, hopefully, and get this entire thing dismissed, then I hope there is at least some sort of accountability on behalf of Megan Thee Stallion and on behalf of the prosecutor who failed to, show this evidence during the case. Now, I understand that the American judicial system is an adversarial environment. It's an adversarial machine. But this is something that needs to change immensely, because we need to be able to understand that prosecutors and judges are only interested in one thing. And that thing should be the truth. And the truth should be the only guiding light in a prosecution. There shouldn't be any biases, and I understand that that's quite alarming to even hear or say, but there shouldn't be any biases. There should only be the seeking of the truth, and allow that to come to light, and from the truth, then there can be an educated decision be made in that situation. But unfortunately, this was not provided to Daystar Peterson, and he subsequently has been injured during the process. So I'm very interested to see exactly how this is going to unfold, and I do believe the truth will come.
Prosecutorial misconduct will be a little bit too much, especially with California, especially a state where they were non-stop voting and electing Kamala Harris for congressman and congresswoman and senator, and they proposed her and nominated her to be the president after that historic debate for the primaries of the Democrats in 2020, where her, she ended her political career back then, accusing her with facts, basically proving on the stage of the debate with facts that Kamala Harris were a huge fan, and she was experienced practitioner of prosecutorial misconduct, prolonging people's sentences, sabotaging their early release, trying to keep them in jail for small non-violent crimes like possession of weed, for example, trying to keep them in the system for as long as possible, and sabotaging the due process in any possible way, just to leave those people in prison and to use their free labor. And this person was nominated for a president. So let's make the conversation political, because now you are accused that you are politicizing this case, and there is a certain wave of MAGA support for Tory Lanez, which is, the least to say, strange, if it is what it is. Is there MAGA support for Tory Lanez?
Absolutely. You see, if we look at the context of this situation, if we understand that Tory Lanez, from his account and from the account of the bodyguard that heard Kelsey Harris discussing this matter, Tory Lanez actually tried to diffuse the entire situation. When Tory Lanez saw that there was something improper happening, he actually was protecting quality of life. He was trying to protect someone's life. And whose life was he trying to protect? It could potentially be Megan Thee Stallion. Now, if we have an individual, a Canadian citizen, so a person who is not from America, who's in a situation where there is a firearm and there's violence happening and a weapon goes off, and we have a Canadian attempting to de-escalate and diffuse the situation so that an American can be kept safe, why wouldn't we want to protect that type of individual? The Democrats took a flight to El Salvador. They decided to have margaritas with an individual that has been accused of human trafficking, but we don't want to support an individual from another country that was actually trying to protect an American life. I think it's pretty clear cut. Anyone who wants to do right by America, anyone that wants to protect the quality of life, should be protected. Anyone who seeks to harm America, anyone who seeks to do anything wrong to America, should not be protected. And I think that's a very simple pragmatic and practical way of thinking, and that's exactly what MAGA is. We're very practical.
Yep.
We're common sense, and I think it's in the pudding.
If that's the case, absolutely, because otherwise people will reasonably start questioning themselves. Why are the MAGA people protecting and pushing for support and trying to set free from jail an immigrant who shot an American citizen? Sounds crazy, isn't it? Those are the two things that are in the core of the MAGA movement and the Republican Party in the past years. You know, illegal immigrations in the interests of the American citizens.
It seems like the majority of Americans in this country understand that freedom, truth, quality of life are the core pillars of being able to live a conducive life in our society. You yourself understand that there has been rampant prosecutorial misconduct even in your country. We've spoken about a prosecutor that was actually being charged with prosecutorial misconduct in your country. If there are individuals around the world that understand that the truth and quality of life and proper judicial procedure is necessary in order to live in a society where freedom is constant and available to everyone, it shouldn't be anything about what country someone is from. The Democrats enjoy, and I mean enjoy, politicizing how immigrants are treated. But we need to start focusing on the intention of these individuals. There's no point in creating a monolith of immigrants where all immigrants are considered this way or that. There's no way that we could possibly do that. The only way we can actually assess anyone's character is by asking them or watching how they conduct themselves and seeking the intention of their actions. Once we find the intention of their actions, we then have the opportunity either to support that or negate it and say, you know what, we might not want that type of behavior in our country, which all countries have the opportunity to choose and decide.
Sure, and somehow the global leftism is trying to make us feel like we owe these people something, like we have to show hospitality, we have to be nice, we have to open. No. Wait a second. This is our state. This is our country. We live here that way. We behave that way. We treat women that way. We treat each other, the elderly people on the streets, the children, everyone, that way. And if you don't like it, then feel free to go home and disappear from here. This is our country and this is the way we live. If you don't respect our culture, if you don't respect our habits, you know, everything, the surrounding life around you, then what are you doing here? We don't want you. You don't like it here because obviously you don't agree with the way we live. So let's solve the problem. Disappear, be gone, no problem. This is not unhuman. This is not, fascist or chauvinist or whatever. This is just the way we live. If you came to our homeland, home country, home state, respect our ways, and then we will respect you. And please come legally through the border with your passport. Thank you very much.
I think that's the most important thing, because we all know that Tory Lanez didn't cross the border.
Yep.
Illegally, right? So if Tory Lanez didn't cross the border illegally, then that means that Tory Lanez decided as his first decision entering the United States that he wanted to do it the right way. Why wouldn't we give an individual who chose to come into this country, whether he has resources or not, he chose to come into this country the proper way? Why not give him an opportunity to either bring his services, his talent, or any sort of resources that he feels like he wishes to share with America? Because we have to understand, Tory Lanez is a significant individual in the music industry. He's extremely successful. Tory Lanez just recently, before he was in prison, he happened to make about $1 million in 1 minute by selling his music as an NFT. And as I will quote Tory Lanez, and I say, he cracked the code. He was able to remove all of the middlemen out of the music industry, create a product, properly distribute it, package it properly, and he even enriched his listeners and the individuals that were willing to invest into his music. And he did so and happened to make $1 million in 1 minute. I understand how dangerous that is for the music industry. You know, they have a stronghold on the market. But guess what America is about? Free trade, innovation, capitalism. And if there is a way that Tory Lanez has created an opportunity for Americans, or anyone rather, to be able to make money alongside him in his success in a proper way, in a legal way, why isn't America standing behind this individual and asking him, hey, one, why are you helping us? Because it is helping. You know how many Americans were able to purchase Tory Lanez NFT and make money alongside him? You can only imagine. And no one's giving him praise for creating opportunities for Americans. Now, besides that, I understand the narrative and I understand the details surrounding this case. They're very serious because we have to understand someone got hurt in the process of this incident. But on the other hand, Tory Lanez is an individual through his track record has shown in America that he's interested in helping us continue being successful, sharing his resources, and giving innovative ways for Americans to make money. These are the type of individuals that we should be supporting, especially if they're an immigrant, because he didn't have to come to America. He could have kept his talent somewhere else, but he chose to come here because he loves America. It's a free country. You can have amazing opportunities to create wealth and resources for yourself and your legacy and your family, and he did just that. And unfortunately, I know there's a lot of what I love to use the word conspiracy theory, even though it was, we got that word less than 100 years ago, right? But there's a huge conspiracy theory surrounding Tory Lanez as to why he might have been targeted for this situation that he may be in. Now, I hope that's not the case. I hope this was just a mere coincidence that someone fired a weapon alongside Tory Lanez and then said that he was the one that fired it, while that weapon would have subsequently harmed another American music artist. Yeah. I hope that's a big coincidence. But I do believe the truth is going to come out. From what I understand, there's audio and there's video footage of Tory Lanez not being the individual that fired the weapon. And I think the truth is going to come out, and we'll see this very shortly.
Yep. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're way more familiar with the case than me, which is normal. And there's no Tory Lanez's DNA on the gun, right?
The sad part is there was not even a 1% chance that Tory Lanez's DNA was on the gun. And if you want to get into the very core specifics of it, the gun had 4 DNA profiles, 2 male and 2 female. The male contributor is 90% of the DNA profile on the weapon, and it was not cured. 0 fingerprints from the weapon were of Tory. 0 of Tory's DNA was on the actual magazine that goes inside the weapon that provides the ammunition for the weapon. And just a 0.01% chance of Tory's DNA was on the gun. Kelsey Harris, the individual in question that the bodyguard is now saying is the individual that actually fired the weapon, had gunshot residue on her hands, but her DNA and fingerprints were never tested. How interesting.
This is interesting. Is the least to be said here. I'm not doubting anything you just said. I consider it true. You're very, very familiar with the case. And so the big question here is, if everything you say is so, and I believe so, how then this man was sentenced to 10 years in prison from jurors, from the court. How is the prosecution, holding up the case and the whole indictment? I don't know really. How can there be such lack of evidence? Such I don't know how to say it. It's too complicated. It's too complicated, not in a good way. Too many things are missing. Too many things which could exonerate him are there. And somehow the man ended up with a 10-year sentence in prison from the jury. How?
From the jury?
How?
Well, it would have to only be because, one, due to the fact that the American judicial system is an adversarial machine, meaning it's not seeking the truth, it's seeking to consume the defendant. The prosecutor's responsibility is to find as much information that will hold this individual accountable and guilty. They're not seeking the truth. Essentially, if we were to look at how the American judicial system works, we have a prosecutor that comes from the state, and the state has unlimited resources that are utilized in the process of prosecuting an individual. Whereas you have an individual, whether it be a citizen, whatever it may be, or a foreign national like Tory Lanez, now has to utilize their own resources to be able to defend. Now, I'm just going to go off on a limb here, and I'm going to ask your viewers, what individual in this world do you believe has the resources that are more than a government?
Yep.
So if we have one side that has unlimited resources in order to prosecute and seek the truth, and then we have an individual that is either innocent or guilty. But in America, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. So if an individual who is innocent before the time of their conviction has limited resources, while the prosecutor has unlimited resources, that right there, just alone, before the case even begins, puts a potential innocent person at an extreme disadvantage. That disadvantage, placated with prosecutorial misconduct, placated with the politicization of this person's or this individual's case, combined with the fact that there may be individuals who will lie. For instance, if this evidence that's coming out shows that Tory Lanez did not fire the weapon, that means that Megan Thee Stallion lied. Now, she lied, and she used that lie and added that as a resource to prosecute him with a machine that has unlimited resources to support that narrative. It is ridiculously incompetent. It's wrong. And there needs to be some sort of judicial prosecutorial misconduct department that needs to be created. Our president, President Donald Trump, understood that not only is prosecutorial misconduct going rampant in our society, but he understands that unless you have the necessary resources that we all know our president does have, you will not have a fair chance in the court system. Now, I do understand, because of his experience, there will be some significant changes coming to the American judicial system. Yep. Because it's the first time in history that we're watching a sitting president starting to hold judges accountable. Can you imagine? There was just a judge recently that was actually charged with trying to help an illegal immigrant escape captivity from ICE by letting him move himself from a courthouse.
Yep.
If we have judges that are allowing their personal biases to enter into the courtroom, that doesn't help anyone. There needs to be an opportunity. So if this judge necessarily felt that this individual was innocent, if she felt like this illegal immigrant was innocent of his conduct, then there should have been a method and a process that this judge could have taken, whether it be an ankle monitor, whether it be added surveillance, whether it be a form of check-in. We need to start creating an immigration probation system where if someone does come into this country illegally and they're conducting themselves the right way, and it's time for them to be held accountable for that first decision that they made coming into this country illegally, but due to their conduct, their work ethic, and the way they conduct themselves in the American society, they are a productive person in our society. First and foremost, they will be held accountable for the fact that they walked into this country illegally, but we will also account the fact that they have been contributing to the American society the way they should have. No, they should not be let free. They should be held accountable. No, they should not be let through a back door by a judicial, entity.
Yep.
They should be held in some form of soft or light captivity to let them know and understand that the first decision that they made coming to this country illegally was inappropriate, it was wrong, and it was a crime. Because if any American decides to walk outside of their door and commit a crime, I assure you that they will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Why is that not being applied to immigrants? It doesn't make any sense. But if this type of judicial prosecutorial misconduct commission gets formed where now judges are being held accountable, prosecutors are being held accountable, we will be able to start going to sleep at night understanding that we're going to have a fair and just judicial system. Yep. It's the most important facet of our society. It's what keeps Americans safe. It's what allows people to hold others accountable. And it's what makes sure that the quality of life in America is able to sustain itself and continue so that the young people that are born every single day in this country have a future and a promising future that they can look forward to.
Yeah, but the case with that judge, it was mesmerizing. I laughed a lot, but it's not funny actually, because this is a person who is very well paid by your taxes to serve the American people and to provide justice. And the moment that ICE apprehend this illegal immigrant and bring him or her, I don't remember, it was him maybe, I guess, in court for due process or trial or whatever, the judge used the coffee break to take the illegal immigrant through some back door and put him in a taxi and just help him flee the court and the judicial system and everything, after thousands of tax dollars were being spent for him to be apprehended and brought to justice. So I really don't understand how that person is still a judge. I really don't understand how you can be a judge and do this. What I understand is that she is not serving the American people or the justice, but the ideology. Those are political activists. Those are not people who are interested in bringing justice. They are doing what's right for their ideology, not what's right for the society or what's right by law.
Absolutely. And I just want to give some clarity to what you said. This judge understood that ICE was in her building, in that courthouse, seeking that specific individual. Now, from the video that I watched, the judge came out and told the ICE officer that they need to speak to the chief court officer. And as she instructed them to go speak to the chief court officer, she allowed that individual to leave her courtroom out the front door.
Yeah, she sent them away. Yep.
Correct. Well, but what subsequently happened was he left out the front door and he was chased from the steps of the courthouse, maybe like about 100 to 200 feet, where he was apprehended. So he didn't make it too far. But the unfortunate thing is that it it by an American judge.
Yep. did you see for yourself as an American citizen, as an American taxpayer, as a person who is very, very, very involved in politics, do you see for yourself in the near future any chance of your judicial system to be depoliticized and become more simple, more understandable, faster, easier to proceed and everything?
George, it's neutral. Our American judicial system needs to become neutral. It can no longer survive adversarially. We need to make sure that our laws are just, our laws make sense, individuals are held accountable, prosecutors are held accountable, and that judges maintain an incredibly neutral stance in all matters. We are all humans. This is something we cannot negate. But we need to make sure in processes that are seeking the truth, in the process that are seeking the facts of a situation, that there are not any human emotions and or processes that go into that.
Yep.
Humans have emotions. They can go up, they can go down, they can go left or right. We cannot allow that type of behavior to muddle and interfere with the truth-seeking process. It's an incredibly tough task. I understand that judges go through vigorous amounts of training and education to be able to provide that service to the American people. But we need to make sure that there is no longer a politicization, bias, personal opinions that are affecting the judicial process. It needs to be a neutral process, and it needs to be a non-adversarial process. Because if you seek the truth in all matters, then everything's going to be okay.
I'm wishing you to do it. I'm wishing you success in it because you're a very important beacon of the free world and the Western world and the Western democracies, and everybody's watching you with increasing interest because you serve as an example. You are the leading force. You are the guys who are, pushing the changes and promoting the changes. So I wish you can do it. Honestly, I would like to see how the system becomes neutral, because for me, as a foreigner, honestly, we don't have this here, but I cannot imagine what's it like to go in front of a democratic judge, a judge who is openly a democratic activist, and then he reads your file and sees that you are a registered Republican voter, and because of the tension in the past years, let's say it, I believe now it's allowed, especially on X, you're a deplorable for this judge. So I don't think you have a very fair chances of due process, fair trial, or justice. So for me, honestly, this is completely non-understandable. But hey, this is just me. So I'm wishing you guys all the best. You keep up the good fight, and until our next meeting, which will be only in few days.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time once again. Thank you for your time, and best of luck with what you do. Thank you.
Bye-bye.